suffering and violence in Sudan. Today marks a year of the war that has created the biggest internal displacement crisis in the world and one of the worst hunger crises that we've seen. This war has forever changed and destroyed the lives of too many Sudanese children. Millions of children don't have enough food to eat or water to drink, and they haven't gotten their essential vaccines. 1 in 3 Sudanese children can't go to school right now. And pretty soon, it's likely that no child will be able to go to school in Sudan. That leaves them vulnerable to displacement, to recruitment by armed groups, to sexual violence. Honestly, every time I think about this, I'm heartbroken. No child should have to go through this. 3 weeks ago, I was in Eastern Chad with Senator Cory Booker and Congresswoman Barbara Lee. We were the first members of Congress to visit with Sudanese refugees at the Chad-Sudan border since the start of the war. We heard horror stories about entire villages that fled Sudan and came to Chad, leaving because violence and lack of food. We heard stories about the RSF coming to villages, committing sexual violence and killing people. I have been to a number of refugee camps in my life. I think I have never seen kids as traumatized as the kids I saw in these refugee camps. It was clear that they were still carrying this heavy trauma, trying to process it and heal while trying to survive in the refugee camps. We can't look away. We can't ignore this crisis. We can't pretend this isn't happening. We have a responsibility, all of us, to stop this suffering and ensure that there's justice and accountability for these crimes. That's why I'm calling on RSF and SAF both to lay down their arms and stop the fighting. And I have also been calling on, and we all need to do more, to call on the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, to stop funding the RSF, which has only prolonged this war and made it more deadly. And once we finally get the violence to end and the humanitarian assistance in, we need to make sure that we pursue justice and accountability so that we can stop this cycle of violence and ensure healing for the Sudanese people to move forward. Even after witnessing and experiencing such unimaginable traumas, the Sudanese people that I met with had incredible strength. They had hope for the future. You know, I was in Darfur in the summer of 2022, and I think about the children I met there all the time. I wonder if they've survived this horrific war, if they're safe, if they made it out. That's why we cannot give up. We can't walk away, and we cannot abandon them. I will keep fighting for the future of Sudan, and I know that all of you will too. So thank you all so much for being out here and for everything you do.
Peace and justice for Sudan!
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 Hi all, I'm thrilled to announce our next speaker, Emi Mahmoud, who's a poet, activist, founder, and UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador. From refugee to Ivy Woman to world champion poet and now Goodwill Ambassador, she continuously advocates for the causes of refugees and disadvantaged communities the world over through her poetry and incredible experience. In 2017, she hosted the first fully inclusive civilian peace talks across Sudan as part of her One Girl Walk and Dreams for Peace initiative. In 2018, she completed an unprecedented 620-mile walk in 30 days from Darfur to Khartoum, mobilizing thousands of people along the way. The newly published author has repeatedly moved audience to tears and to their feet. So I'm proud to hand it over to Emi.
Hello everyone. I'm gonna start with the first poem and then some remarks. It is incredible to be here to be with you, but also so harrowing that it's already been a year of this crisis. I want to give you a bit of context. In the past year, 7 of my family members have been killed in this war, all civilians. And in the past 2 weeks, 4 more. Another war came crashing down on our bodies. The cut of a broken piece and the bite of a broken promise are the same, except with the first one, death follows and takes everyone around you. Back home, our skin is green because we're full of life. But a full life looks so different when it's poured out onto the rubble, rotting in the streets. Every university became a grave, every garden a final resting place. Our brothers and sisters fall faster than we can dig the holes. Bloodlines burn, singed to ash, to soil, to sand, to nothing, to dust. On the receiving end of the bullet is a little girl, a family, a brother, a home. Airstrikes the Dana, airstrikes the Dana. Blood in the streets of Khartoum and Al-Ubaid. Blood in the wadis of Niyala and Janina. In the mountains of Al-Fashir, the pyramids of Marawi. Blood across the sky of our beautiful country, Sudan, Baladi. My love, who did this to you? Who stripped you bare and turned all your children loose? The killing starts. The bodies fall, they don't stop. The killing starts, we don't run, hoping against hope that it's a mistake, that if we sit quiet and still enough, they'll know that we're human, that we bleed the same blood, that we bleed the same blood. Who decides who lives or dies? My uncle Abdulaziz walked home from prayer. The bomb soared down from above, took him and 4 neighbors away from us. Sunrise saw my cousin Ammar on the way to college. My uncle Ibrahim resting at home. Each found a bullet, each found an end. My uncle Ibrahim Ahmed lost his life when the hospital shuttered. Became more dangerous in the disease that robbed him. I held my mother as we cried for her brother, for all of our people across Sudan. One on the first day, one on the second, another soon after. Our families broke fast together one night and planned burials together by morning. The next day comes and there's nowhere to run. My country falls to pieces and my people go missing one by one. Roads covered, rubble still bleeding, sent to the bottom of a crater, reduced to a footnote in a world said to be in crisis. First orphans, now refugees. For the first time, the second or the third home is burning. See the buildings falling. See the fire flashing. Hear the people evaporating before our eyes. The hospitals filled with the wounded and our lungs filled with ash. That the hospitals closed and the borders too. And the headlines named our killers but not us. And the world keeps moving. And the people whisper it's a mystery. And their names turn to memories in our mouths. Their names turn to memories in our mouths. A people robbed of time. A country without its people. A people robbed of time. How can I explain what it's like to sleep and not wake up? Or to wake up and know that it happened again. And you are oceans away. Crying, pleading, praying, screaming for our voices to be heard. Dying for our lives. Literally dying for our lives. In my country, wars have ended. But peace has never come. Who pulled the trigger? Who bought the bullets? Who sold the guns? Who will stop the war? Who will bring the peace? Tell me how to make it stop. Tell me how to make it stop. Sudan, Baladi. Who did this to you, my love? My country, can you hear me? My country, can you hear me? Thank you, everyone. It is so incredibly painful. Thank you. It's so incredibly painful because I wrote this about a year ago when the conflict first started, when the war first started. And as you've heard from everyone today, at the hands of 2 generals and this senseless, painful war, we're losing so much. When the headlines call it a civil war, they miss a very important fact. This war is happening without the consent of the people. It is not happening in our name. So why are they saying it is civil or civilian? This war has taken so many lives, and I told you at the beginning of this talk, I've lost 11 family members in total. 4 in the past 2 weeks alone. How do we make it stop? How do we get the rest of the world to hear us? Why is Sudan going ignored? You've heard the numbers, so many numbers. What's so painful about this crisis is that it was totally preventable. And it is not too late. When countries and peoples like our own are relegated to the periphery of what the world deems as important, structural violence continues. The genocide in Darfur never ended. You heard the congressman say it's going on still right now. The genocide, the killing of all of our people in Sudan, in South Sudan, everywhere. This is a completely painful injustice. This is the biggest humanitarian crisis of our time, the largest displacement crisis, and it is called a fight between two people. Tell me how it is to rehumanize our people in the eyes of the world. I'm going to share 2 more poems. This poem is called Head Over Heels, and it tells you a little bit more about everything else that's going on in the world and why it is so important for us to address this, and why it is that numbers, although powerful, can obscure what it is we're trying to say. That there are people here, there are people, and every day we lose more. Head over heels. They hand me the microphone as my shoulder sinks under the weight of the stress. The woman says, the 1 millionth refugee left South Sudan, can you comment? I feel my feet rock back and forth on the heels my mother bought, begging the question, do we stay or is it safer to choose flight? My mind echoes through the numbers. 1 million gone, 400,000 dead in Darfur, 2 million displaced, and this lump takes over my throat as if each of those bodies found a grave right here in my esophagus. Our once country, all west and south and east and north, so restless the Nile couldn't hold us together. And you ask me to summarize. They talk about the numbers as if this isn't still happening. As if 500,000 didn't just die in Syria. As if 3,000 aren't still making their final stand at the bottom of the Mediterranean. As if there aren't entire volumes full of fact sheets about our genocides. And you want me to write one. Fact, we never talked over breakfast because the war planes would swallow our voices. Fact, my grandfather didn't want to leave home, so he died in a war zone. Fact, a burning bush without God is just a fire. I measure the distance between what I know and what it's safe to say on a microphone. Do I talk about sorrow, displacement? Do I mention the violence? How it's never as simple as what you see on TV? How there are weeks worth of fear before the camera's on? Do I tell her about our bodies? How they were 60% water, but we still burn like driftwood? Do I tell her the men died first, mothers forced to watch the slaughter? That they came for our children, scattering them across the continent until our homes sank, that even castles sink at the bite of the bomb? Do I tell her about the elderly, our heroes, too weak to run, too expensive to shoot? How they would march them, hands raised, rifles at their backs into the fire. How their walking sticks kept the flames alive. It sounds too harsh for a bundle of warriors and an audience to swallow. Too relentless, like the valley that filled with the putrid smoke of our deaths. Is it better in verse? Can a stanza become a burial shroud? Will it sting less if I say it softly? Will the pain leave when the microphone does? If you don't see me cry, will you listen better? 30 seconds for the sound bite, now 3 minutes for the poem. Why does every word feel as if I'm saying my last? My tongue goes dry. The same way we died, becoming ash without ever having been coal. I feel my left leg go numb and realize that I locked my knees, bracing for impact. I never wear shoes. I can't run in. Thank you. What's so painful and why there's so much anger that I have right now is that this is so preventable. Sudan has been in the news for decades. I became a public speaker when I was 10 years old talking about Darfur. Sudan has been in the news for decades. Everyone knows Sudan and knows that the people of Sudan, both Sudans, all of our people are kind, peaceful, loving people All we want is the right to grow up, to go to college, to be healthy, to write songs or poems, to eat. And we don't have that right now. And the world is not only not standing with the civilians of Sudan, but it's not standing with its values. This world purports to be a world of peace, about humanitarianism, about all these different things. And to me, I think it's not too late. The way for us to solve this crisis is what this last poem is about. For us to support and uplift all women, especially Sudanese women, in ending this crisis. Thank you. This poem is called Mama, and I wrote it many years ago. Sudan Baladi is new. Head over heels, as you can see, the numbers are from years ago, but it's still relevant today. I dream of a day where these poems are a relic of history and not something that's happening to us right now. When you hear this, please think of us and take it to the furthest reaches of the earth. I don't want to be here in another year crying alongside you. This poem is called Mama. Oh, I forgot to say, Hurriya, Salam, wa Adala. So I'm walking down the street when a man stops me and says, "Ayo, sister, are you from the motherland?" Because this skin is a shade too dark not to have come from foreign soil. Because this garment on my head screams Africa. Because my body is a beacon calling everyone to come flock to the motherland. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Sudan. Why? He said, yes, you is, because you got a little bit of flavor in you. Don't get me wrong. I'm just admiring what your mama gave you. Let me tell you something about my mama. She can reduce a man to tattered flesh without so much as blinking. Her words fester beneath your skin, and the whole time you won't be able to stop cradling her eyes, because my mama is a woman, flawless and formidable in the same step. Woman walks into a war zone and has warriors cowering at her feet. My mama holds all of us in her face, in her body, in her blood, and blood is no good once you let it loose, so she always holds us close, keeping us safe from caving in. When I was 7, my mama cradled bullets in the billows of her robes. That same night she came home and taught me how to get gunpowder out of cotton with a bar of soap. Years later, when the soldiers held her at gunpoint and asked her who she was, she said, "I am a daughter of Adam, anybody Adam, I am a woman, who the hell are you?" And the last time we went home, we watched our village burn. Soldiers pouring blood from civilian skulls as if they too could turn water into wine. The woman who raised me turned and said, "Don't be scared. I'm your mother, I'm here, I won't let them through." My mama gave me conviction. Women like her inherit bruised wrists, tired eyes, and titanium plated spines. The daughters of widows wearing the wings of amputees. They carry countries between their shoulder blades. Now, I'm not saying that dating is a first world problem, but these trifling guys seem to be the kind who'll quote Rumi, but not know what he sacrificed for war. Who'll fawn over Lupita, but turn their racial filters on. Who take their politics with a latte when I take mine with tear gas. Every guy I meet wants me my introduction to this dark side, wants me to open up this obsidian skin and let him read every tearful page, because what survivor hasn't had her struggle made spectacle? Don't talk about the motherland unless you know that being from Africa means waking up an afterthought in this country. Don't talk about my flavor unless you know that my flavor is insurrection, it is rebellion, it is resistance. My flavor is burden, it is grit, and it is compromise. And you don't know compromise till you rebuilt your home for the 3rd time, without bricks, without mortar, without any other option. I turned to the man and said, "My mother and I don't walk the streets alone back home anymore. Back home, there are no streets to walk anymore." Thank you, everyone.
Such inspiring words. Our next speaker, Sama Salam, is the president and co-founder of the U.S. Educated Sudanese Association, a diaspora civil society organization dedicated to supporting Sudan's civilian democratic transition and addressing the economic and humanitarian crisis resulting from the recent conflict. So I'm thrilled to hand it over to Sama.